What happens when law, business, and life collide? Each week on Lead Counsel, your host Tona will take a deep dive into topics related to the law, the business of law, and life. There will be insightful discussions with industry insiders, experts, and thought leaders making significant contributions and meaningful differences in their fields of expertise. Tom is the founder and managing attorney at TonaLaw. He has been a practicing attorney since 1994 and the leader of TonaLaw since it opened in 2001. The goal of this podcast is to provide you with free information on law and the business of law, and to give you actionable tools related to each of these areas. Now, here's Tom.
Hello, welcome to the Lead Counsel podcast. It's your host, Tom Tona. I am here with my co-host, Juliet. Jules, what's going on?
Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode.
So today's episode, Jules, we thought it would be a cool idea to do the importance of knowing your North Star, right?
And it was inspired by one of your longer LinkedIn posts. And I figured, why not go through it and go a little more in depth on the topic? Because I think it's a really interesting topic that a lot of people, lawyers or non-lawyers, would like to listen to.
Yeah. So the question comes up to me a lot as the owner of a firm is, what do you want? Whether it's a vendor, whether it's a team member, whether it's opposing counsel, a judge, a mediator. You know, I always get what do you want, Tom? And typically, I like to listen to the questions that get posed. And I started to ruminate about this question. I became obsessed with, somebody asking me what I want. And the context that it gets asked in is somebody trying to figure out me, my emotional composition, and basically try to get to the bottom of what do I want from the relationship, whether it is opposing counsel, it's an insurance company, whatever it is, it could be a team member. So I like to reflect on the question a lot to figure out what's behind it, right? So in looking at the question, what do I want? Often I think it's the wrong question. Here's why, what do I want, Tom Tona, is the wrong question. Or if I'm meeting with a friend of mine that owns a law firm and he runs it like we run ours, and there's a bunch of people that I do know that do that, what do I want is the wrong question.
Okay.
The business is a living, breathing organism, right? So when you ask me a question, Tom, what do I want? It's almost irrelevant at this point. This business has taken on a life of its own. It's a living and breathing entity, and I treat it as such. So often my answer is now, it's not what I want. It's what the business needs. So now ask me what the business needs, and I'm going to tell you it's always going to be in alignment with what is in the best interest of my client, period. So don't ask what I want. What's in the best interest of the business, Jules, is you having enough content to flood the social medias with content, right? So then I would say to you, it's not what I want. It's what the business needs. And therefore, are you willing to do what the business needs to give it what it needs, right? And like the funny thing about you is you're young, but you are always willing to do that, right?
Yeah.
Like you always have this concept of you don't come to me and you're like, what do you want, Tom? So really it's about ultimately what's the best interest of the client, society at large, and the business as a living, breathing entity. So it's always about aligning the business's successes and outcomes with what's in the best interest of the client. And if there's non-alignment for the law firm owners that are listening to this, you shouldn't be taking those clients.
So how long would you say it took you to figure out, I guess, like when you developed your business model, like how long did it take you to figure out how to ask, okay, what does the business need? Or like, how did you get to that point?
Monday. No, I'm being dead serious. That doing what I do, right? And I'm thinking of a friend of mine who's a very good friend. He owns a law firm in Orlando, or another very good friend who owns a law firm in Charlotte. I love these law firm owners. And we often struggle with the same thing. People come to us and they think we have all the answers. We don't. We're just doing the best we can, but we're really good at business. And a lot of times I'm talking to these guys on the way into the office, or these ladies on the way into the office that own their own firms. So I got obsessed with the question of what do I want? Because it's always in the relation to what are my expectations, Tom, as the law firm owner from the person I'm speaking with. So it could be a frustrated employee. It could be a vendor that's trying to sell me something. And I'm like, it ain't what I want. It's what the business needs. So if you're a vendor and I tell you, look, I'm very frustrated at the lack of price and transparency in the marketplace. What my business needs is transparency. I'm trying to make educated decisions with the dollar. If you ignore that, odds are we're not going to be talking about me buying from your business, because then it's showing me my business needs come second. And if you're selling something to somebody, their business needs kind of have to come first. It should be a mutual arrangement, mutually beneficial. So what do you want is kind of a loaded question, right? Do you really mean what's in the best interest of the business or my clients? Or do you need something else for a different reason? Is there an agenda behind the question? Is it an emotional need somebody needs filled, or a financial need, whatever it is? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I can understand where you were going with that.
So the North Star concept, right, that I talk about is, if the business is the living, breathing thing, my North Star is, what is the best interest of the client? And I had an epiphany. I'm working on a hellacious wrongful death case. If that was my family and I was dead, what kind of lawyering would I want my wife and my daughter to get, right? I want to be that law firm. That's the law firm I want to be. So I built the whole vision of the firm around that need. What kind of law firm would I hire if I was grievously injured? I was dead. What kind of law firm would I hire on the no-fault collection side? I own a business. If I had $1 million in uncollected receivables that the carriers were jerking me around on, what kind of service would I want to receive from the law firm? And that's the standard I set for my no-fault division, right? So the North Star for me is, what does the client need? What does the client need? Not the client experience. What are the needs of the client, and are they being met, right? Some client needs are going to be unrealistic, and then we have to have a conversation about setting expectations. But for the most part, my default is to put myself in the shoes of that client, right? And I'll give you an example of that. I have 2 clients, very serious injury, multiple surgeries. One I'm talking to in the morning on Monday. I say to her, look, they're stuck on the number. We're going to go forward. I think you're being reasonable in your expectations. You're being reasonable in not taking an unrealistic view of what the case is worth, and they're not paying what you want. So we mark the case ready to go forward with litigation and ultimately go to trial. Sure enough, they call back and we have a meeting of the minds on resolution, right? Okay. I have another case that is marked for trial. We're ready to go to trial, and I'm spending tons of money on experts and all of that. And there's a last minute mediation right as we're getting ready to go into pick a jury. There's a last minute mediation scheduled at 6:00 at night. Now, I already in my head know I got up at 4:30 that morning. My trial guy is going into the mediation, and the case didn't resolve till like 8:30, 8:45 at night, right? Did I want to work till 8:30 at night? No. Did I do what needed to be done? Because if I was the client, that's what I would want. Hell yeah. Right. And that's not a big deal. Some firms, it's a big deal. Lawyers are like, I don't want to work on weekends. I don't want to work nights. But okay. But if you were the client, what would you want? Right. So it's not what I want. And so that to me is where the North Star for me is clearly in focus. My vision is crystal clear. And anybody that's listening to this, I would say, first you start with what your personal core values are. A few years later, you'll crystallize those into what the real core values are for your law firm, right? But for me, my North Star is this. If I'm the injured person with the worst injuries imaginable, grievous injuries, you're dead, or brain injuries, would I want my wife to hire my law firm knowing the stakes involved for my family and what I know intrinsically about my law firm? And if I can't get out of bed every day and answer that with a resounding yes, that's an issue. That's a big issue.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it.
And here's the problem, right? You work in the law firm. God forbid you were in the client's place. Can you answer that question? This is the law firm I would want to hire, right? Yeah, so if everybody in your organization doesn't understand that, you have to personalize that, because that's our organizational North Star.
Yeah. And that's why I'll always refer family members, friends, anybody over here.
No, I know. And you have, right? You have.
Mhm.
Imagine though, if you did that and then you see them at Christmas and they're like, yo, man, I haven't heard from my lawyer in like 6 months.
That'd be embarrassing. I'd be like, ugh.
Right? And listen, I know law firms.
Yeah.
I know people that work at law firms, non-attorneys, that refer their cases to other law firms. So if you're a lawyer listening out there, that'll happen, right? That'll happen. I'm happy. Like we have a high level of referrals from staff, right? Family members. We just had another person who's like, hey, my uncle, so-and-so. We get those all the time. So it tells me that there's a tough bar to meet when it comes to performance. But I know that when push comes to shove, if they're referring over their family member, they want what we're offering from a lawyering perspective, right? And by lawyering, I mean paralegaling. I mean, everybody in their seat doing the best they can do every day.
Yeah, of course. So like what examples have you seen or incidences you've seen at like other firms or by other entrepreneurs where you're like, wow, they're not even paying attention to like the client and the client's needs?
I mean, unfortunately, I see that all the time. You know, I have a case come across my desk, and this was back when I was working a high volume of cases, but I'll never forget it. Like this woman came in from Queens. There was another lawyer on the case, and she had a meniscal tear, a knee tear with arthroscopic surgery. That firm was trying to get her to settle the case for $7,500. And I was like, $7,500?
Doesn't that not make them anything?
I don't know the business model. I can't speak to it. What I can tell you is this: 3 months later, we got her the full policy tender of $100.
That's insane. I
mean, but then think about that. Were they just a turn and burn firm? Were they just in it for a quick buck, a quick $2,500? This poor client.
It's not even worth it.
And it was a knee tear with surgery. Like, so to answer your question of horror stories I've heard, I mean, unfortunately, I hear them all the time from clients. All the time. I don't look to take over cases actively from other law firms. But that being said, when people come in, they're going to fire that law firm anyway.
Yep.
Then if I know I can do a good job, and if it's not too far along and there's not other red flags on the file, I just want to do what's in the best interest of the client. You know?
Yeah. So what advice would you give to young law firm or young lawyers who are looking to be law firm owners or just young entrepreneurs in general to recognize what that North Star is and how to keep fostering it or like keep in alignment with it?
I think it's about self-awareness and reflection, right? Personally, professionally, what matters to you? Right? What matters to you when you sit still in the dark and you're meditating or you're praying or whatever it is? What really matters to you? And what kind of XYZ do you want to be? What kind of matrimonial lawyer do you want to be? What kind of marketing person do you want to be? Right, Jules? Like we have a good friend, you know, James Joseph. That's what I love about him, man. He knows his North Star and who he wants to be as a matrimonial lawyer. He could easily be like every other lawyer out there that is like, we're going to make this 10 times worse because it's going to generate 100 times the legal fee, right? That's not who he is. So I think you have to figure out your North Star. I would invite anybody that listens to this, like just reflect on your own North Star. Yeah. What is that?
What happened that made you think of this and write all this down?
EOS.
Yeah. The exercises that you guys do?
Yeah, because they make you drill down on your core values. Are they really your core values? Because every organization has core values, whether they're stated or not, and whether they're living in them or not, right? If somebody's got a plaque they bought on Amazon and it says, oh, this is my core values. I think Seth Price was the one who was talking about that, right? Yeah, those are not core values for real, right? Do you hire for core values? Do you fire for core values, non-alignment, that type of stuff? Basically once I crystallized core values, culture, vision, mission, all of those exercises that I did, and you were there for the rollout, you've been a part of that stuff, and you were a key part of this, which is, you know, I know you're making me crazy lately, but you were a key part of this because everything great about you is like the ideal team member. Right.
Thanks.
If I had 1,000 of you, I feel like we could literally dominate the world because of your character, your composition, your alignment with core values. Right.
Thanks.
And your skills. Like you're really talented. You're hardworking. You make me crazy lately, but you're fantastic. So I think that knowing your core values is everything. That was the inspiration. So, and the funny thing is, once it was crystal clear, there is no turning back for me. Like, I have seen what the future of this firm is going to look like. I couldn't undo it if I wanted to.
Yep.
Right.
The bullet train has left the station.
The bullet train has left the station. And I'm on a mission to be that different law firm, provide a different client experience, a different empathy level where most firms don't even have that. So that's basically it. I would encourage anybody that is listening, sit down and do the exercise. Figure out what's really important to you. And your vision, by the way, doesn't have to align with mine. If you want to be in the office, in the company, then we need alignment. But if it's not, you don't have to make believe. You might just be moving on. It might be not you, because I will not let you leave.
Yeah.
But you know, like, it's not a horrible thing. It also removes a lot of the messiness around what's really going on between a team member and a company owner or a company management team, right? If there's non-alignment with the core values and the culture, and it's not something that's fixable, it's okay. This is the Lead Counsel podcast. You can listen wherever podcasts are distributed. And if you got value out of today's episode, please go to Apple Podcasts, leave us a 5-star review, share it with friends, you know, any law firm owners you know, or business owners you know, or anybody that might be interested or find it interesting, you think. So I really appreciate you tuning in. And peace. We're out.